in 20 laps and what he scored in the last 11 races. That just kind of shows you the journey that Miguel Oliveira's been on. Mid-season last year, when we were around Mugello, Barcelona, Assen, we thought he was going to be a title contender, and then his form just completely disappeared. But I think it's fair to say he's back.
And what a journey KTM have been on as well. We touched on this in Qatar, how difficult their pre-season was looking at the first test in Sepang, but they certainly found a direction at the Mandalika test. Their season, in many ways, whatever KTM go on to achieve in 2022, they can certainly say that this circuit, this Pertamina Mandalika circuit, has played a key role in their fortunes in 2022. They found a direction at the test, and they leave the first ever Grand Prix around this circuit as constructors and teams championship leaders, with both of their riders within the top 4 and within 5 points of the Riders' Championship lead.
Well, I was going to say, we've had sun, sea, sand and speed here today, but sadly we've been lacking the sun. But we'll take it. We finally did get the MotoGP battle we were all hoping for. It was worth the wait, as we mentioned pre-race, over 8,900 days since our last Premier Class action here in Indonesia. And the podium celebration are about to get underway. Oliveira, Quartararo and Zarco are coming to the podium here in Mandalika.
Please welcome to the podium, winning construction, Sebastian Risi.
So KTM then, certainly in business, aren't they, at the start of the 2022 season? A second in Qatar and a victory here, as Francesco Guidotti pointed out to Simon downstairs. Johann Zarco then ending his podium drought. Fabio Quartararo, quite possibly the happiest man on the podium this afternoon. A real breakthrough for him in full wet conditions to take second place. But Miguel Oliveira, he was the master of Mandalika this afternoon, dominating the race from the moment he got past Jack Miller at the front of this Grand Prix. There was no catching him. A 4th career victory for him in MotoGP. Of course, they've all come in very different circumstances. The last lap, last corner overtake that took him to his first Grand Prix victory. The dominance of Portimao. The victory against the odds in some respects in Barcelona last year. And then a victory, a real dominant wet weather victory here, as the President of the Republic of Indonesia, Joko Widodo, passes over the trophies to our top 3. Johann Zarco, our 3rd place man. Fabio Quartararo in 2nd place. This was the first time Fabio Quartararo has met him. He wasn't at the parade on Wednesday. Quartararo, one of the sweetest trophies and the most precious 20 points he's perhaps picked up in his career. But Miguel Oliveira then, he is your race winner. The President hands over the trophy. It took us 25 years, but it was certainly worth the wait. And magnificent Miguel mastered the wet conditions in Mandalika this afternoon.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem of Portugal.
So our first visit to Indonesia ends in joy and triumph for the factory KTM team. It's the race win and his 50th MotoGP start for 27-year-old Portuguese rider Miguel Oliveira. 16th career win, 4th in the MotoGP World Championship. His first podium since the Sachsenring. Feels like a long, long wait, doesn't it? Last summer in Germany. Those three men there on your picture had to work really, really hard, didn't they, for their money and their points today. Tricky conditions. We saw big scares of Pecco Bagnaia, Pol Espargaro. Jorge Martin crashed out and went when well placed. Stunning ride by Darren Binder to take a 10th place. The next GP, of course, where we move from Southeast Asia to South America, and a welcome return to Termas de Rio Hondo, a South America, North America doubleheader coming up, our first trip to Argentina since 2019. Looking forward to that one for round 3 in a couple of weeks' time. Beautiful part of the world, and of course we love the passion of the South American fans, just like we've had the passion and power of the MotoGP fans here in Indonesia. Myself and Lewis have put in a fair old shift, just like the MotoGP riders have, haven't we, today? But it's been worth the wait. We've thoroughly enjoyed it, as I'm sure you have had at home, as Miguel Oliveira takes his first win of the season.
And the shift isn't over yet. Stick around for after the flag as we break down all the action very, very shortly. But Miguel Oliveira taking the victory then from Fabio Quartararo and Johan Zarco. 2 Frenchmen on the podium. Jack Miller led early on but slipped to 4th. But he opens his account for the season ahead of the Suzukis of Rins and Mir. Morbidelli in 7th ahead of Brad Binder and Aleix Espargaro. Darren Binder, one of the stars of the day, pipping the championship leader Enea Bastianini to 10th. Pol Espargaro in 12th ahead of Alex Marquez and Luca Marini. And Pecco Bagnaia opens his account for the season, but just 1 point for the Ducati man. Maverick Vinales still yet to get off the board. He's 16th today. Ralph Fernandez next up in 17th ahead of Fabio Di Giannantonio. Takaki Nakagami, he had a race to forget, although he did pit Marco Bezzecchi by just 0.02 of a second. Remy Gardner was the last rider home. Jorge Martin crashed out and Andrea Dovizioso had technical problems. Bastianini then leads the championship to Argentina, but look how close it is. 10 points cover the top 9 riders in the World Championship, with Brad Binder in 2nd, Quartararo in 3rd. Miguel Oliveira, he's on the board up to 4th ahead of Johan Zarco and the Espargaro brothers, with Rins and Mir 8th and 9th. Franco Morbidelli is into the top 10, having scored points for the 2nd race in a row. Jack Miller moves ahead of Marc Marquez, who of course didn't start the Grand Prix today due to a concussion. He is on the 11 points that he scored in Qatar, 1 place ahead of Darren Binder. Nakagami, Marini, Vinales, Alex Marquez, Dovizioso, Remy Gardner and Pecco Bagnaia complete your top 20. 4 riders still yet to score. They are Ralph Fernandez, Fabio Di Giannantonio, Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin. Unsurprisingly, given that he leads the overall championship, Enea Bastianini also leads the Independent Riders' Championship. 6 points clear of Johan Zarco, with Darren Binder up to 3rd in the Independent Riders' Championship after a sensational ride through the field to the top 10 today. Red Bull KTM Factory Racing lead the Teams Championship for the first time in MotoGP. They are 12 points clear of Monster Energy Yamaha MotoGP. Suzuki, they climb a place up to 3rd as Repsol Honda drop down to 4th. Gresini Racing in 5th with Pramac in 6th. Pretty 7th, Ducati Lenovo team. Well, they've registered their first points of the season, which put them provisionally in 8th position, just ahead of LCR Honda. With you, RNF Yamaha complete the top 10. The Independent Teams Championships, only the leading rider across the line for each team scores points in this particular classification, which is why Gresini Racing lead it on 30 points, courtesy of Enea Bastianini. 6 clear of Pramac Racing, with LCR Honda in 3rd. And KTM, for the first time, lead the Constructors' Championship. A bit of a reshuffle in the championship at this very early stage in the season. They are 4 points ahead of Ducati, whose top point scorer today, of course, was Johan Zarco. Yamaha lift themselves off the bottom up to 3rd, with Suzuki also climbing to 4th. Honda, who had such a great start to the season, they had a poor weekend. They're down to 5th, with Aprilia in 6th.
So world champion Fabio Quartararo led a shortened 20-lap MotoGP race away from pole position after a 75-minute rain delay. Great launch on the Monster Energy Yamaha machine for the Frenchman. Great start as well by our eventual winner Miguel Oliveira, who quickly slotted himself into 2nd place, having started from 7th on the 3rd row. The visibility was a problem if you were a bit further down the pack, as Alex Rins got picked off quickly by the fast-starting front row starter Johan Zarco, as Jack Miller also came into early podium contention. A mistake exiting the final corner allowed Miguel Oliveira through on Fabio Quartararo to power into the lead, as Miller's charge towards the front continued as he passed Oliveira on the brakes into turn 10. The Aussie looking for his 4th MotoGP win. big scare exiting the final corner on the damp curbs for Jorge Martin. Unfortunately, he was to crash out later on in the race at turn 1. This was the key move though. Jack Miller struggling for grip and Miguel Oliveira pounced into turn 12, and from that moment onwards it was a masterclass in tricky conditions. Andrea Dovizioso unfortunately was ruled out with a technical problem on his With You Yamaha, and after his big scare out the final corner at the start of the Grand Prix, this time Jorge Martin didn't get away with it, hitting a puddle in the braking zone for the first corner. Down he went. Another massive scare for Repsol Honda's Pol Espargaro on a bad day for HRC, with Marc Marquez sidelined through injury. Johann Zarco's podium charge started to really gather momentum when he passed Alex Rins for third. Next in his sights was Thriller Miller. He was able to make light work late on of the Australian as the two Ducati men fought for the final place on the podium. This was when Zarco made his charge towards second at the time, with Quartararo also coming right back into contention. El Diablo was the fastest man on the circuit at this point, and it was a hard move on the brakes in the first corner which picked up Zarco. Oliveira though by this point was well clear. Quartararo though found incredible late speed and took a second place that felt like a win for him. This was his move crucially into second by Miller. His team keeping informed of exactly where Johann Zarco was as he headed towards his first podium of 2022. This man though was unstoppable. Miguel Oliveira was the man in Mandalika. What a way for Motogp to return to Indonesia for the first time in 1997. We can't wait to do it all over again next year. Of course, South America next on our world tour in Terma 3 or Hondo. But here in Mandalika, Miguel Oliveira takes the win in round 2. Join us next time in Argentina.
After 25 years of waiting, MotoGP officially returned to Indonesia. Its first Indonesian Grand Prix for 25 years, and it was certainly worth the wait, even if we had to wait a little bit longer this afternoon with a 75-minute delay to the Grand Prix earlier on today. But we did get underway in the end in wet conditions. My name's Lewis Suddaby. Joining me to break down all the action from this Indonesian Grand Prix is Sarah Crafar. A Grand Prix won in the end by Miguel Oliveira and KTM. What a start to the season that KTM have had after what looked like a pretty difficult pre-season. Certainly at the first test in Sepang, they've certainly got their act together with a second place for Brad Binder at the opening Grand Prix of the season, and then a victory in wet conditions for Miguel Oliveira today. It really was a masterclass from Miguel, wasn't it? Once he got the lead from Jack Miller, he seemed to control it. Even when Fabio Quartararo looked like he was putting a little bit of spurt on towards the end, Oliveira just seemed to have it in hand.
Yeah, and I meant what I said to Miguel, you know, to his face in Parc Ferme, that he's reminded us all of his class, you know, that he's showed us many times over his career, because it's easy to forget. I mean, it was mid last year, really, before the last time since the last time we saw it, you know. The second in Mugello was amazing, and then the win in Catalunya was absolute class. And he's reminded us today again of it, that he hasn't gone away. And I'm really pleased for him. He said how hard it's been the last months, and this might give him the boost. He was on the way back anyway. We saw through practice and qualifying he was back, but this might give him the boost to roll on in the dry and do something more special.
Yeah, they're really on the crest of a wave at the moment, KTM. They, for the first time in the MotoGP history since they've returned to the sport, they lead both the teams and the Constructors' Championship by virtue of their consistent start to the season with Binder and Oliveira. You spoke to Francesco Guidotti in pit lane following the race. Of course, what a start to life at KTM he's having, but they very much seem to be just enjoying this wave of momentum at the moment. Of course, we're going to circuit, or the next circuit, Termas Rio Hondo. Since KTM's improvement to genuine front-running contenders, of course, they've not raced at that circuit, so difficult to know what to expect from there, but all the signs we're getting from KTM is that this package is a serious front-running contender.
Yes, I'd like to again say I never thought it was far away, but at this level of competition, you just a little bit off. If you're a little bit off with something, it's not possible to fight at front. And it seems like they've improved a couple of things that were holding them back. Brad said it was turning and rear grip, driving off the turns, and they've improved both of those, and their guys are back in the fight, you know, wet and dry. I don't think they would have fought for the win at least, and would have been difficult to fight for the podium in the dry. But, you know, fair's fair. Miguel's ride was awesome. And even Johan Zarco mentioned the class of Miguel and Jack to be able to get up to that speed so quickly, you know. Like from the first lap, he struggled to do it, and these guys could. Impressive ride.
Brad Binder came through to 8th in the end. He had a bit of a yo-yo Grand Prix, the South African. He dropped back in the early stages, and then a very entertaining battle with his brother Darren as well late in that Grand Prix. We'll come on to Darren a little bit later on. The conditions at the end were challenging. We think just got around about lucky with this Grand Prix at the end, just as we were making our way to the set here for after the fact. The rain has really picked up again, so perhaps we just found the right window to get this Indonesian Grand Prix in. But what do we think of the conditions at the start of the race? It was about right, I think, for us to go racing. They've done a good job to clean the track. I mean, the white line's very treacherous. We saw that catch out the likes of Paul Espargaro and Jorge Martin during the Grand Prix, but I think we saw from the riders there that grip levels on this wet surface were very, very good. Amazing
grip levels, and to be fair, a lot of the curb, I mean, it has got the proper paint on it, but the water sits there deeper, so you get aquaplaning as well, worse than on the asphalt surface. I think we were very lucky. That's what it came down to. We're unlucky because we had to delay, but there, like you said, there was a window there that was, the rain stopped and we could run the race, and it stayed away long enough that we could run it to the end, so we were fortunate.
Fabio Quartararo came through in the end to take second place, the reigning world champion. Starting from pole position, he would have certainly been hoping for a dry race today, given his pace in free practice 4 yesterday. But these were the conditions which greeted him for race day today, of course. It caused the serious delay to proceedings. But once we got underway, Fabio Quartararo
I think would have been, with good reason, a little bit nervous about a wet Grand Prix today, but the performance that we saw from the reigning world champion was exceptional. I don't think I've seen Fabio Quartararo happier than that for many of his Grand Prix victories. This was a significant result for him today in conditions like that.
I agree. He looked as happy as I've ever seen him, you know, for a result. And like he said, he didn't expect it because his rain, or Yamaha's rain results for a lot of years now have been really average, you know, lack of rear grip. This track is very high grip in the rain. The Superbike guys said the same before we came. The times showed it. They were well less than 10 seconds, you know, 7, 8, even less, higher than dry times. So that the grip level's amazing in the wet. And I think that helped the Yamaha's problem in the rain. And because it's clearly not Fabio's problem, and he could show what he could do in the rain, and super happy.
Well, our colleague Matt Burt is ready to bring us the reaction from the top three finishes today. It was a masterclass from Miguel Oliveira here in Mandalika. Matt Burt is ready to talk to the winner.
But like Brad did in Qatar, you made an incredible start from that third row, 7th place. That gave you the platform to fight for the victory. How important was it to get that launch and then get that initial confidence and feeling on those rain tyres?
I mean, it was crucial. I think without the start that I've done, I don't know where we could end up in the race. The visibility was incredibly poor. I could not see a thing, even when I was by myself I needed like a screen wiper or something similar, because I just couldn't see anything. We had just an idea where we put the wheels. The rear end lights of the other bikes kind of showed us a little bit where we were, but to be honest, was quite difficult. I could manage with 1 or 2 bikes, but I just wanted to get up in front of Jack and just start to go away, you know, because it was really that difficult to see. So, of course, the start was crucial. Then to keep the pace and see the limit of the bike and keep hitting the same marks, the same lap time was was key to a good race and to keep the pace at the end. I was afraid that my tires could overheat a little bit by the end and that I hadn't margin to push again. But fortunately, I have enough gap to then Fabio, so that was perfect.
We know how strong Jack Miller is in these conditions. I mean, how much of a useful reference was he in those early laps for you to assess the conditions and just assess where you were at compared to him, and then understand where you could push and attack?
To be honest, it was nice to have Jack for a couple of laps because I could build kind of especially the braking reference. Jack was braking a little bit later than me, and so I understood immediately how far could I go without taking a lot of risk or without running in wide. And then was just managing a little bit the rear. The bike was set up perfectly for these conditions already. When we rode with not so wet track, I felt very good with the bike, and so the team did an amazing job to give me a good bike to ride today. I felt also quite strong on the dry, but on the dry it was kind of unknown territory for everyone, because the race is much more physical. It's you know, the tires were down a little bit more, so was definitely something which we were going to discover, but I felt good in either conditions.
Amazing start to the year for KTM. You're now the leaders of the team championship, and KTM are leaders in the constructor championship for the first time. But from an individual perspective, Miguel, it's been a tough second half of last season. How much did you need this result just to get some confidence and some momentum back?
I mean, I needed the result. I was down for top 10 results, you know, even in Qatar. I was not there to do something incredible, especially starting from 14, I think, back in the 7th row of the grid or something like that. So it's just I wanted to start the season with a decent result and build up from there. But you know, when you are so close to the front and you see the chance to win, you say, why not? So let's do it. I didn't hold back. So that's my mentality going in forward. I wanna build up good results for the team, take this advantage that these 2 races were kind of up and down for all all the competitors. So let's see what we can do and position ourselves well for the rest of the season.
Yeah, great job, Miguel. The perfect way to mark your 50th appearance in MotoGP. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Miguel Oliveira, a fourth career victory for him in MotoGP. Whether it's the best of his career, perhaps he can answer that. Of course, four very different MotoGP victories for him. The battle for the final podium position then behind Fabio Quartararo ended up going the way of Johann Zarco. And if we're talking about people who needed a result, Matt mentioned there Miguel Oliveira, who needed a result. Johann Zarco probably falls into that category as well, of course. It's been a long time since we last saw him on the podium back at Catalunya last season. So just how much did Johann Zarco need this result?
Well, I mean, he's another guy like Miguel that, as unfair as it is, we start to forget, you know, when there's been so much time without a good result, which both of them have had, you know. So like you said, mid last year. So super important. I think Miguel touched on it now. He's going to take that result and run forward with it. And I think hopefully for Johann Zarco as well. Zarco put a great ride in, and he clearly had the pace to go with the leaders, the winner. But just couldn't overtake, was struggling to drive off the turn, so it made it too difficult to pass. You need that engine to get you beside so you don't have to take too much risk on the brake. And yeah, that's what I think it came down to. So I'd just like to go back, because I didn't get to comment on Miguel Oliveira. I'm super happy for him, because he's also showed us that he's back, you know, showed us his class, but also for KTM. Can you imagine, it doesn't take much to imagine how hard it is to come into this class and fight against Honda and Japanese manufacturers, Italian manufacturers. They've thrown so much at it. They had a hard time last year. It must have been disheartening, and they haven't given up. They've come out swinging. They are now second and fourth in the championship. Unreal.
Incredible. And one of those Italian manufacturers you mentioned are Ducati. Of course, their mixed season has continued, and Enea Bastianini retains the World Championship lead, having come back through the pack to salvage a top 10 result. In fact, I think he was just outside the top 10 today, Enea Bastianini. But the factory Ducati team, Pecco Bagnaia, strange race for him. He made good ground after a poor start, but then fell back through the fields again. And Jack Miller, who I think we all thought was on for a really strong result, never quite materialised for him.
I'll be honest, I expected, if I had high expectations for anyone, it was the factory Dukes, you know. The Ducatis in general, because they're famous for braking stability and their mechanical grip, like in wet conditions. That's why they've had so many good results in rain conditions in the past. And I really thought Jack, maybe Pecco, you know, Jorge was going well, fell, and Johann Zarco did. But factory Ducati again, disappointing weekend, really. Jack was there, he had the pace, he was awesome, but it didn't quite, he didn't quite get over the line what I'm sure he was hoping to do.
Well, Ducati did get a podium to show for their trip to Indonesia. It fell the way of Johann Zarco, back on the podium for the first time since midway through last year. Third place for him, he's now with Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. His first podium on the GP22 in the 2022 World Championship campaign. Johann, it's been a pretty eventful 25 hours or so for you. After the drama of the crash in FP4, you then qualified on the front row, and now you're fighting for the podium and on the podium here. So how do you try and sum up what's happened to you over the last day or so? Pretty dramatic.
Happy anyway. When I saw the rain, I was kind of happy, because I knew that I will suffer much less physically, because after the warm-up, the warm was crazy. And so that was the first positive point. But I did not expect to have a full race on the wet. I really expect to get the track coming dry. But we got the rain all the race. And it was incredible, the grip we can have on the wet, because you could push a lot, and the grip was there, so I could have a good fight with the other riders, overall with Rins, and then a bit with Jack. Fabio caught us also, and in that moment, because I was losing the podium, I have to take even more risk, and it was working. But clearly, I've lost too much time to overtake Jack, and I was losing on the drive. I was spinning, even if I was strong on the brake, was not good enough to overtake him quickly and maybe try to catch Miguel. So that's maybe the pity of the race, with also this feeling that I took a bit late because so much water on the track, it was difficult to trust immediately after 2 corners and push a lot. Anyway, 3rd place is very positive because all the weekend I was quite strong, and I will work like this every weekend to get myself stronger for the future.
You're one of the most experienced riders in MotoGP, but how difficult were those conditions and that kind of scenario where you're going into a race on a track you've never raced at before, in full wet conditions where you don't have a lot of experience of this new bike as well? I mean, that must have been quite difficult going into that unknown situation.
The experience is helping a lot to control the situation, and as I say, we know the track was very warm, and this new asphalt normally brings a lot of grip on the wet. But me, I need a few laps to understand it, and that's why Jack and Miguel were incredible, because to get so fast like this at the beginning, they have really an instinct incredible to push like this. So that's the high level. You don't have the choice that you must adapt immediately to do something well. If not, you are nowhere. So I can only say that it's MotoGP.
Miguel said how important this result was for him after a difficult period in the second half of last season. We haven't seen you on the podium for quite a long time, although you've been fast in most of the races. But how much importance was it for you to get back on the podium in the early part of this season, just to build some confidence and momentum for the next few Grand Prix?
Overall, for the points in the championship, a podium is always many points, and I take them. It's clear that it was long time I was not on the podium, but I was not leaving it so bad, because you try to do always the best every races. So you must accept also when the other they are stronger than you, or when you cannot do much more. So that's why I try really to push myself even more every practices to improve my level, and then be more often on the podium like I began the year last year.
Great job today, Johan. Many congratulations.
Thanks to Matt Burt. Speaking to Johan Zarco, one of the stars of the day. We'll hear from second-placed Fabio Quartararo very shortly. As we've already talked about, a key result for Johan Zarco as he returns to the podium for the first time since Catalonia last year. Let's talk about some of the other stars of the race, though. And I think one rider we have to touch on, he might not necessarily jump off the page if you're looking at the results, but Darren Binder, the top rookie today in 10th position, coming through from the back of the grid. Of course, a real voyage into the unknown for all the riders today, but for Darren Binder, his first MotoGP race in wet conditions. At one point, he was high as 8th, ended up getting shuffled back by his own brother, Brad Binder, finishing in 10th position. What a performance from the rookie.
I completely agree, and now in 2 different conditions, completely different conditions. Qatar, he was top rookie, and then to turn up his first time in the wet and fight through to 8th was truly amazing. And he only got bumped back to 10th through a pure scrap, wasn't it? But from his brother, Brad said to him when he came to MotoGP, "See you on the brakes," and he meant it. You know, I'm super happy